We were still at Manang and we stayed here an extra day. When planning trips such as this, I always buffer extra days for acclimatization or the possibility of the need for rest. Just as we had stopped our journey between Pisang and Manang at Humde and spent a night there watching the thousands of waterfalls come down the hillsides into the valley, we reached Manang to a lovely hotel, Hotel Tilicho, after the mountain and the lake. The hotel had running water, ensuite bathrooms, and it was a luxury compared to what we had stayed at. It also had fabulous views of the Gangapurna Glacier and Annapurna Tree, breathtaking views as a matter of fact. We spent the extra day taking good advantage of the hot showers, good hot tasty food. We washed our hair, set things to dry, and hydrated ourselves, drinking some hot, lovely tea. Manang was already 3,540 meters, which is about 11,614 feet. Time to indeed spend a day for acclimatization. As the evening approached, ominous clouds puffed their way in. Puff, puff, puff they came, drawn to the heightened peaks like butterflies to nectar. And before you knew it, the vistas that you saw, the high peaks, the lofty mountains, the great magnificence was no more. It was almost like it never existed. Even the little sliver one saw disappeared. We woke to a nice bright morning and were all gung ho about being on our way. The wind gusts about our ears and the river rushed forward. Occasionally, a bird or a sparrow would chirp along. We walked through the village of Manang and walked past the newly done stupa that adorned this beautiful place. We wound our way down the alleys and emerged above the fields. Neatly tilled, these green fields descended in clear, tiered order on either side of our slowly ascending trail. We kept going up, sometimes up gradual slopes and sometimes over stony paths. Anticipating a higher ascent, we had taken a half a tablet of Diamox each as a precaution. I had felt a little weird after taking it, a little bit altered with tingling on my face and a strange feeling all over. Perhaps it was oxygenating me. But well, it was worth it. In the morning, we were up and ready for a beautiful day. A local lady carried her child on her back in a traditional backpack. He was a happy camper. She was heading to the fields to tell her little parcel for her family. And he was the happier for it, completely oblivious, of course, to that beautiful horse that would have normally attracted any child. Perhaps we were more of an amusement. The path was interestingly devoid of trees. The landscape across the river was bleak and scarred, telltale marks of the power of running water and the mighty frozen glaciers that recede. We were ourselves astonished as to how high we got in an hour, 410 meters in 2 hours along the edges of the glacial valley, through small villages, each of which had a series of prayer wheels that you could turn as you walked past. We were heading to Gunsang for lunch. Gunsang is just 3 kilometers from Manang, but it takes at least 2 hours because of the increased elevation. At 12,275 feet, which is 3,530 meters, Gunsang was easily 1,200 feet more than Manang, which we had left behind. The mountains told us stories, stories of immense upliftment and erosion. For those interested in geology, this was a wonderland. We found ourselves, after 2 hours, at our lunch spot, and we sat on the roof with a fabulous view of Gangapurna.
And let's try 5 more walls. This time we've been having balls, right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's try
Fried
five.
veg cheese momo. Okay, we'll get one of that.
egg cheese.
Fried veg cheese momo. Then we'll do potato curry plus rice.
With the wind blustering around us and a spectacular view of the glacier, we ordered fried veg cheese momos and steaming rice with one portion of vegetables and one portion of potatoes. This was a rare view of the top of the glacier, a place where the river of ice actually originates. You could see the depth of the glacier, or rather the height, since it was above ground, and all the formations of icy rock. These formations would move, sliding down slowly, drawn by the irresistible power of gravity. By many measures, Gangapurna is a very tiny glacier with a very sheer vertical drop from top to bottom, where it ended in the Gangapurna lake. As the pressure from falling snow built up on the top, the glacier would slide down ever so slowly. Our eyes were riveted to the mountain and to the glacier. We could see a huge wall of the glacier in front of us, even as the clouds threatened to swallow it whole. The enormous peak beyond was a mass of white, barely seen anymore. Perhaps it didn't exist. One could imagine all kinds of things in the glacier. How deep would the crevasses be? I wondered. How thick was that wall of ice that we saw? And how tall the mountain beyond, which we couldn't see anymore? It was a wonderland the likes of which I would never get close to at this point. One could see a vertical wall of cloud coming down. It looked like the clouds were going to dump snow on top of the mountain. We held our breath and waited. You could see the thick sheets of precipitation, snow, falling on the mountain top, and then ever so slowly it suddenly cleared off, leaving the very top glistening for us to look at in awe. Our reality was a little different. We sat in a spot that was rather sunny, relatively, and watched babies, calves, woolly little things graze alone. I always wondered, as I had wondered before, why were the calves alone? This one still had its umbilical cord, dried and dangling. The potato roasty with cheese was a potato pancake, roasted with cheese melted on top. It was a sumptuous lunch. We ate, chatted, and napped. Our guide assured us that there was no hurry. Yak Kharka was not too far away. It was still an ascent to be done, but not one that would take many, many hours. The locals went about their daily chores while we lay on the rooftop looking at the sky. It was a wonderful experience. The body had been exercised, the stomach had been filled with hot food, there was no rush, and there were blue skies right above us. What more could one ask for at this point? Across the valley, a completely different scenario was unfolding. It was grey, ominous, probably bitterly cold, uninhabitable. The enormous peak that seemed like something solid that one could count on had vanished, hidden by veils of moving grey. The mood of the mountain had changed completely. When the clouds cleared, we could see the huge blocks of ice and the fresh powder on the magnificent Gangapurna. Annapurna 3 glittered behind a bank of clouds that had obviously not reached her. Gangapurna shone, and we stared, dazzled. There were equally interesting things to see right before us. This very cute group of goats. This one obviously was much loved and had a lot of kunkuma applied on its forehead.
Appa, come see this, Appa. You gotta see this. The clouds are uncovered, dispersed, and the mountain is seen. The huge peak. Come here.
Complete snow Angala.
Yeah.
When we came here, it was not fully snowed.
There's a peak.
As we readied ourselves to leave, wearing our packs, refilling our bottles, and heading to Yak Kharka, the sun was on us. It shone on Gangapurna, and suddenly, with a series of popping cracks, an avalanche started. With great excitement, I zoomed in, hoping to see where the avalanche could have possibly happened. Where was it popping and cracking, almost like gunshots coming across the valley? But one could not help scour the landscape, look closely through a zoomed lens, hoping to see any signs of actual movement. How life is all about perspective. The tall cliffs of ice on the glacier are completely dwarfed by the peak Gangapurna that was behind. The light of the benign sun fell on the glacier, but that was enough. Another set of crackles, and the ice falls melted into a steady waterfall, beautiful, long, and grey, dancing in the wind. These waterfalls fell directly into the lake from which we had drunk earlier. With one final glance at the snow covered mountains, we set off on our path to Yak Kharka. It was a lovely path with wildflowers blooming on either side. They were little shrubs, clusters of bright pink, white, lavender, all clinging to the harsh terrain, the rocky, rubbly, loose surface that distinguishes any glacial valley. These delightful natural bouquets also have some purpose. The fragrance of this particular flower helps ease breathing in high altitudes. The valley reveals itself to us. A river runs a windy path over white pebbled shores, sending her loud passing out to our ears. The chill wind blustered around us, and the warm sun prevented a chill. We cross a metal bridge, fording yet another river that descends from Chula East. I drink in the stark and empty beauty all around. The straight and granitic rocks jut their chins skyward, and the soft earth covered with all kinds of flowers slopes to the ever running ice grey river. The Genjan Khola tea shop is closed. We are visitors who have come out of season, and they're not ready to cater for us. But we have a great time in its environs. There are some unusual rocks piled here, made into a wall almost. Perhaps there was an ancient monument that got broken down. It is at this point, in this place with clear air and lichen growing all over the rocks, that we saw three trekkers rushing past us in the opposite direction. They were the same two young men and a very fit young lady who rushed past us and overtook us several days ago in an effort to rush to the top and make it to Muktinath in record time. But the altitude and the mountain had beaten them back. They looked weary, exhausted, and very, very sick. The motley crew that we were We took it slow, pausing for extra days in between, and it paid off. We were enjoying ourselves. These were moments of a lifetime, moments that we perhaps may never be able to recreate, not certainly in this fashion. We reached Yak Kharka at 4018 meters, over 13,000 feet, happy and ready to enjoy the rest of the trip. Thanks for watching this What is India production. Give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.